So let's turn now to interactions and highlight some of the most important considerations if we think about educators' interactions with children that support learning. What do you think of as the most important considerations in your relationships with children that support their learning or their becoming?
One that kind of sticks out to me is when you're sitting with a child and the child is trying to figure something out, or there's that mystery element. I always try to think of what is the problem that the child is trying to solve, and what is the outcome that they want to achieve. So the child, without thinking about it, has something that they want to learn or some skill that they want to obtain. So instead of thinking, oh, this would be a great opportunity to teach them this, I think it's really important to actually look at what the child is striving to learn.
Okay. So looking at it from the child's perspective.
Yeah.
One of the things that educators need to do is to plan, of course, but also to see spontaneously occurring opportunities. And when we were filming in your room, Sam, we saw a lovely opportunity of a learning possibility, if we want to label it as that kind of turned up unexpectedly, and that the educators that you work with seem to take advantage of. One of the things that little segment reminds us of is the importance, whatever the learning opportunity is, of that kind of natural conversation, not the artificial teacheries, what colour is that, how many are they, shapes, colours, those kinds of artificial questions, but just that kind of easy back and forth, even with children who aren't yet using many words. Just there's a kind of naturalness to it. And I think you probably agree with me that one of the most exciting things to witness as someone who works with babies and toddlers is that growth of language, being able to understand what's said to them and being able to use language. Is it a challenge to encourage educators to talk naturally to babies, or do you find that most educators find that pretty easy?
I think once educators get to know a child and understand the way that child, without verbalising, kind of communicates, then I think it's a lot easier to be natural and respond when there is just a small detail that you notice. So a child could do a hand gesture or just something small that you may not notice before you really know that child.
So talking about conversations and the naturalness and the easy flow of conversations between educators and babies and toddlers, we can extend that to what some people call the kind of dance that children and educators do in their interactions, that sometimes the child leads and the educator responds, sometimes the educator leads and the child responds. There's a kind of reciprocity and responsiveness, a kind of gentle back and forth quality that happens. And there's an of that we filmed in one of the centres that kind of illustrates in a fairly graphic way that sort of back and forth nature of learning interactions. So let's have a look at that now. Put the sauces. Where are the sauces? The sauces are gone. There they are. There they are, the two sauces. Yeah, they were hiding. Yeah, you're putting the lid back on? Huh? They're gone. Where are the sauces? There they are. They were hiding in the saucepan. Gone. They're gone. This is an example of a number of things, but that kind of back and forth, the child leading the experience. What else did you notice in that little episode?
For me, her level of interaction with someone that was unfamiliar to her, her facial gazing, her looking in the eyes, that her sharing of the experience with you, her ability to, the surprise every time she opened that lid was new.
Yeah, it kind of shows that, the world is an amazing place when you're under two. It's just full of fascinating and fantastic things. Yeah.
I felt like she was kind of sharing a secret with you. Like just her facial expression, she was like, I've got a secret and I'm going to show it to you every time. It was like this really special thing between the two of you.
Yeah. And the language to me was was pretty amazing. That so much communication from her. Couldn't always understand it, but that definite feeling of she's saying something. It's just unfortunate that we're not clever enough to always know exactly what she's saying. And I mean, it was kind of on her terms. So she certainly decided when it was over. And that often happens, doesn't it? That you can be doing a riveting job, reading a book or something, and all of a sudden you look around you and you're reading the book to yourself because they've wandered off to do something else. And supporting that rather than seeing it as, oh, it's frustrating to work with this age group, but supporting that and going with it is actually how you support, one of the ways you support children's sense of agency. That's that thing of, I'm a bit in control of my own experience. I can make decisions. I have choices here. So, what are some examples of choices that you give children, or decisions that you let them make on an everyday basis?
Quite often in the morning when we're going outside, I think Sam said this earlier, that some children when they arrive need that time just to settle, and we can gauge who would like to go outside.
Sam, what about in your program?
I can think of a lot with routines. So we ask the children if we could do anything that involves them. Basically, we give them a right to choose whether they'd like to get their nappy changed, whether it's okay if we blow their nose, whether they'd like to have morning tea now or later. We just believe children have the right to choose, and that they are capable of understanding their needs. And we like to give them that sense of agency.
And you respect the choice that they make? Yeah.
Unless, of course, it's a very horrible circumstance where they've had a poo in their nappy for a long time and it's necessary.
Don't respect that choice to go around all day with a pooey nappy.
Yeah, it's not really respecting the child. But there's no point asking a child something unless you're going to respect their answer.
Exactly. Yeah. Christy, what about in your program?
I think a lot of the examples I've heard, but one fairly new one, we had a nutritionist come in and speak to us, and one of the things that was highlighted is that our responsibility as educators is to provide the right nutrients for children, but it's not necessarily our right to decide how much a child eats. So our responsibility is to serve it up, and it's the child's choice of how much they eat.
We're going to look now at some footage of a child and an educator in the sandpit. This child is a little bit older than most, if not all, of the children that we've featured in other footage. It's a child who's between 2 and 3.
Careful, you don't step on my little spiders.
Little spiders?
Yeah.
Where are they?
They're budding the bitty can't
Really? What kind of spiders are they?
They're scary spiders.
No.
Yeah.
Have to be careful not to step on them.
But Cindy, I'm making it for them to me.
Okay. The same hole?
Yes.
All the way to the bottom?
Yeah, all the way to the bottom.
What are we going to find at the bottom?
It's going to be here for years.
For years?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, now when we put all the sand in there, we're going to put the spiders in this. And
So
then
we're burying the spiders?
they're burying the spiders because that's their home.
Okay.
You're burying the spiders.
I didn't know you put them in already. So we're covering the spiders now.
So what stands out for you in that incident that depicts something about the quality of interactions to support learning?
I think it was nice that the educator let the child take the lead role. It was quite obvious that he wanted to take the lead role, and he was exerting some power and leadership. That's a better word, leadership. And the educator just rolled with it, just went with it, and it was just very natural and just something that you would see occurring. And he went on for quite a while, and he was very specific about what was going on, and the educator didn't lead him in any direction. So it was, fun to watch.
Christy?
I think sometimes for children as well, it's nice for them to have, because if you know the background of children and their experiences, and Lucas obviously was sharing his experiences. Spiders are scary, you know, those bearing them. You know, he's only 3, so he needs to sleep. So all those things were coming through.
To me, there was a lovely pace to that little incident too. There was a kind of a lack of sense of urgency, or we've got to hurry this along. It was just sort of for that moment, you've got my full attention, and I'll give you all the time you need. I mean, that might not have gone on for 45 minutes or an hour, but to me, it reminded me of the power of one-to-one encounters and interactions that are just so important for all children in care and education services, but particularly important for babies and toddlers, and you know, particularly important for supporting belonging, being, and becoming. And I think that's one of the challenges for educators is to seize any of those opportunities that you can for one-to-one encounters. So we'll look at 2 very brief little episodes of one-to-one encounters using books, an educator, because books and stories are often a great vehicle for a one-to-one time between an educator and a child. One of the great opportunities for learning is in routines in infant toddler programs, and I'm sure you 3 would agree that some days you go home and you feel as though you've done nothing but routines: change nappies, arrivals, departures, rest, sleep, change clothes, eating, feeding bottles, whatever. But that definition of the curriculum in the early years learning framework is I think particularly important with babies and toddlers, that the curriculum is the child's whole experience, and so many learning opportunities in routines. So I think it's really important to think of routines as opportunities for all kinds of learning, and to kind of make the most of them. So let's watch lunchtime in Christy's room. So Christy, what are some of the main things you're trying to achieve in the ways that you offer lunch to children?
I guess we're trying to develop a healthy attitude towards meal times, allowing children choice, allowing children to be independent, modelling some of the practices that happen at home. So the introduction of knives might be something that's not necessarily, people would think that that's appropriate in a baby's room, but we had a child whose parents had said to us that she was interested, so we thought, well, we'll go and purchase some and see what happens with this. And in fact, what actually happened was the first time that we gave it to her, she sat there and perfectly ate with this knife and fork, carving the food, holding the fork appropriately. And when I mentioned that to her mother had said to me, she's never done that at home, she just plays with it. We've just always given her one because that's what we have, and she's always wanted ours. So just setting children up for a positive experience for mealtimes and putting them in control, empowering them to make their own choices.
The other aspect we try to really encourage the children to focus on at mealtimes is that it is such an important social interaction. As adults, you know, whenever we get together with a friend or see family, it is over a meal. So just encouraging children that this is such an important part of culture and of our daily lifestyle.
It's also providing furniture that is appropriate for children. So the chairs that you see in the footage have 2 heights, and they can be turned the other way for an adult to sit on. So they're appropriate for an adult, turned the other way, they're appropriate for a younger baby, they support them. But children can get on and off themselves. So it gives them the choice. Am I ready for lunch? Am I hungry? Yeah. Yes, I am. I can come and sit at the table.
So just to finish up, there's so much happening with babies and toddlers, and I think you 3 have really captured the vibrance and the richness and the excitement of working with these very young children. And I think one of the things that that you've pointed out is that in some ways it's easier to offer a really high quality program for babies and toddlers because they're interested in everything, because they're so excited about being in the world, because you kind of have to work so closely with their families, and you almost have to have those partnerships. But in some ways, a lot of people would say it's harder because I think you have to be more tuned in, and I think you've illustrated that over and over. You've talked about how, and given great examples of how important it is to know children really well, and to respond to what you know, to respond to them as individuals. So, any last words from you three about babies and toddlers belonging, being, and becoming?
I think for me, because I haven't worked with babies and toddlers for such a long time, it's been great to go back to the start, I suppose, and really be aware of how competent they are. Yes, they're not speaking yet, they're not maybe as mobile or even walking, but there's so much we can learn from them and vice versa, and just being open to it. And the more you know, the more you see.
Yeah, I think similar, just just encouragement for people who are working with babies and toddlers, that it can be such a rewarding place to be, and babies and toddlers do learn so much and they can teach us so much, and just to really focus on where the children are at and to really kind of notice those really special things they do in the day.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, when I'm working with infants and toddlers, for me it's about recognising what the child brings and nurturing that. For me, the rewards are in seeing where the child takes themselves, and the fact that I've helped them along the way, but that I've helped them do it for themselves.
Doing it for myself, right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, excellent. So, thank you three so much for contributing examples, contributing footage, contributing your ideas and your wisdom, and hopefully this will re-excite people who work with babies and toddlers and encourage more people to look more closely at babies and toddlers learning and at their belonging, being, and becoming. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.